He grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the door. She was still bleeding from the C-section. Their son was 48 hours old. "Get out," Marcus said. "We're done." The blizzard outside was brutal, -15 degrees. Elena clutched her newborn against her chest, her hospital gown still visible under her thin coat. "Please," she whispered. "Just one night. He's 2 days old." Marcus threw $500 into the snow. "Don't come back." He thought he was discarding a burden. He thought he was finally free. He had no idea that the shivering woman standing in his driveway had just inherited the very company he worked for. In 72 hours, she wouldn't just be his ex-wife. She would be his boss. Drop a comment with your city. Let's see how far this story travels. The first contraction hit Elena at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. She remembered the exact time because she had been staring at the ceiling counting the minutes since Marcus had come home. He had stumbled in at 2:30 smelling like whiskey and perfume that wasn't hers. She didn't ask where he'd been. She already knew. The second contraction came 12 minutes later, sharp enough to make her gasp. "Marcus!" She shook his shoulder. "Marcus, wake up. Something's wrong. The baby isn't due for 3 more weeks." He groaned, pulling the pillow over his head. "Call an Uber." "Marcus, please. I'm scared." "I have a presentation at 8. I can't be tired for this, Elena. This is my shot at VP." She called the Uber herself. She rode to Chicago Memorial alone, timing her contractions on her phone, tears streaming down her face. The driver kept asking if she was okay. She kept saying yes. The doctor said the cord was wrapped around the baby's neck. They needed to do an emergency C-section immediately. She signed the consent forms with shaking hands. "Is there someone we should call?" the nurse asked. "Your husband." Elena dialed Marcus. It went to voicemail. She went into surgery alone. Lucas was born at 6:23 a.m. screaming and healthy despite everything. 7 pounds 4 ounces. A fighter from his first breath. Elena held him against her chest in the recovery room, sobbing with relief and exhaustion, and a loneliness so profound it felt like drowning. Marcus finally showed up at noon. He walked into the room with a bouquet of gas station flowers and a distracted expression, already checking his phone. "It's a boy," Elena said. "I named him Lucas." "Lucas? Sure, that works." He barely glanced at the baby. "Listen, I can't stay. Henderson is writing me hard about the Morrison account. But I'll pick you up when they discharge you, okay?" "When will that be?" "Couple days, right. Just text me." He kissed her forehead, a dry mechanical gesture, and left. Elena stared at the door long after it closed. She told herself it was the hormones making her cry. She told herself he was just stressed about work. She told herself a lot of things. 2 days later, Elena was discharged. She texted Marcus 3 times. No response. She called twice. Voicemail. Finally, she ordered an Uber with the last $30 in her checking account. The hospital had given her a list of post-operative instructions: no heavy lifting, no stairs, no strenuous activity. The incision was still fresh, held together with staples and hope. The ride home took 40 minutes. Chicago traffic. The baby slept the whole way, tiny fists curled against his chest. Elena stared out the window at the gray November sky and felt something cold settling in her stomach. Something was wrong. She could feel it the way you feel a storm coming, that pressure in the air, that electricity on your skin. When the Uber pulled up to the brownstone, she noticed the lights were on. That was strange. Marcus should be at work. She paid the driver, gathered the car seat, and walked slowly up the front steps. Every movement pulled at her stitches. By the time she reached the door, she was breathing hard. She pushed it open. "Marcus, we're home." Lucas slept the whole way. The living room was different, cleaner than she'd ever seen it. The mail that usually piled up on the entry table was gone. The throw blankets were folded with military precision, and there were suitcases by the door. 3 of them. Her suitcases. Marcus. He was sitting in the leather recliner, the expensive one he'd bought himself for his birthday. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand, and he was wearing his good suit. The Navy Brooks Brothers one he saved for important meetings. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the blank television screen. Marcus, what's going on? Are we going somewhere? He finally turned his head. His face was completely blank. No warmth, no recognition, no guilt, just nothing. No, Elena, he said. His voice was terrifyingly calm. We aren't going anywhere. You are. What? You heard me. Elena's legs started shaking. She looked down at Lucas in the car seat, then back at her husband of 4 years. I don't understand. Is this a joke? I just had surgery? I can barely walk. What are you? It's not a joke, a voice said from the kitchen. Elena froze. The kitchen door swung open, and a woman walked out. Elena knew her. Vanessa Chen, 23 years old, junior account manager at Marcus's firm. She had met her at the company Christmas party last year. Vanessa was wearing Elena's bathrobe, the silk one with the embroidered flowers, the one Elena's mother had given her before she died. Vanessa, Elena whispered. What are you doing here? Why are you wearing my... It's mine now, Vanessa said. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, looking at Elena like she was something scraped off the bottom of a shoe. Everything here is mine now, including him. Elena turned to Marcus. Her whole body had gone cold. Marcus, tell me this isn't what it looks like. Tell me you didn't. I've been trying to find the right time to tell you. Marcus stood up, straightening his suit jacket. But there's never a right time, is there? So I'll just say it. I'm not happy, Elena. I haven't been happy for a long time. You're leaving me. I'm upgrading. The word hit her like a physical blow. Upgrading, Marcus. I just gave birth to your son. 2 days ago. I almost died on that operating table. And you, that's exactly the problem. Marcus's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the contempt underneath. Look at you, Elena. You're a mess. You have no ambition. You're content living paycheck to paycheck, clipping coupons, working double shifts at that pathetic diner. I'm on the fast track at Kingsley Holdings. I need a partner who fits the image of a VP, someone who understands the corporate world, someone who can help me climb, not drag me down. I supported you through your MBA. Elena's voice cracked. I worked 60-hour weeks so you could study. I put my own dreams on hold so you could... And I'm grateful for that, really. But you served your purpose. It's time for me to move on. Vanessa walked over and stood beside Marcus. She slipped her arm through his, marking her territory. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Vanessa said. Just take the money and go. You'll find someone else. Someone more. Your level. Elena looked at them standing there together. The man she had loved for 6 years. The woman wearing her dead mother's robe. The money, she repeated. Marcus walked to the entry table and picked up a thick envelope. He tossed it at Elena's feet. $500. Should cover a motel for a few nights while you figure things out. I've already talked to a lawyer. The divorce papers will be ready by Monday. Don't fight me on this, Elena. You won't win. It's the middle of November. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. There's a blizzard warning tonight. I have nowhere to go. My parents are dead. I have a newborn baby, your son Marcus. Your son. Marcus glanced at the car seat. For just a moment something flickered in his eyes. But then it was gone, smoothed over by that terrible blankness. I'll send child support once the lawyers figure out the numbers. But right now I need you gone. I have a meeting with the regional director tomorrow morning. I need to sleep. You need to sleep. Elena laughed. It was an ugly sound, broken and hysterical. Your wife is bleeding through her stitches. Your son is 2 days old. And you need to sleep. Don't be dramatic. Marcus, please. She dropped to her knees. The pain in her abdomen was blinding, but she didn't care. Please, Just let me stay in the guest room for 1 week, just until I can find a place. Don't do this to Lucas. Whatever you feel about me, he's innocent. He's your blood." Vanessa crouched down until she was eye level with Elena. Her perfume was overwhelming, expensive, wrong. "Don't you have any dignity?" Vanessa whispered. "He doesn't want you. He never really did. You were just a stepping stone. Now get up and get out before this gets embarrassing." Marcus grabbed Elena by the arm and hauled her to her feet. She cried out in pain. She could feel something tearing inside, something wet spreading across her bandage, but he didn't notice. Or didn't care. "Get out, Elena." He opened the front door. The wind hit her like a wall of ice. "Don't come back." "Marcus!" He grabbed the nearest suitcase and threw it onto the front porch. Then the second. Then the third. Elena stumbled backward instinctively, curling her body around the car seat to protect Lucas from the cold. "Please," she begged one last time. "He's your son." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw nothing. No love, no regret, no hesitation. "Should have thought about that before you let yourself go," he said, and he slammed the door in her face. Elena stood in the driveway for a long time. The snow was already coming down, hard, thick flakes that stuck to her hair and melted on her cheeks. Or maybe those were tears. She couldn't tell anymore. Lucas started crying. The cold was seeping through the thin blanket she'd wrapped around his car seat. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Mommy's here. Mommy's going to figure this out." But she didn't know how. She was 27 years old. Unemployed, she'd quit the diner 6 months ago to prepare for the baby. No savings, Marcus had drained the joint account. No family, her mother had died of cancer 2 years ago, and she'd never known her father. All she had was $500, a newborn, and a body that was slowly falling apart. She picked up the suitcases, one at a time, because she couldn't lift more than 10 pounds without risking her stitches. The handles were already slick with snow. She made it 3 blocks before she had to stop. The pain was too much. She was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering. She found a bus stop with a small plastic shelter and collapsed onto the metal bench. It wasn't warm, but it blocked the worst of the wind. Lucas was screaming now. Hungry, cold, scared. "I know, baby, I know. Just give Mommy a minute." She checked her phone. 14% battery. She scrolled through her contacts looking for anyone she could call. But Marcus had isolated her systematically over the past 4 years. Her college friends were gone. He'd called them low-value people and made her feel guilty for seeing them. Her co-workers at the diner had drifted away when she quit. Her mother was dead. She was completely alone. She called the local women's shelter. "I'm sorry, honey." The woman on the other end sounded exhausted. "We're at capacity. The storm brought everyone in. You can try the Salvation Army downtown, but they usually fill up by 6. It was 9:47 p.m. Elena hung up without saying goodbye. She opened her banking app. Balance 42.50 sounds. Marcus had drained everything. The joint savings, the emergency fund, everything she'd contributed during the years she'd worked to support his dreams. She looked down at Lucas. He had stopped crying. He was just staring up at her with those dark, serious eyes. "I'm going to fix this," she told him. "I don't know how yet, but I'm going to fix this." She believed it. She had to. The black car appeared at 10:15 p.m. Elena noticed it because it was so out of place. This wasn't a wealthy neighborhood, mostly working-class families, older cars, practical lives. A Rolls-Royce Phantom was as alien here as a spaceship. The car slowed, stopped. The engine idled silently. Elena pulled Lucas closer, her heart hammering. She'd heard stories about women in vulnerable situations, women who got into the wrong car, women who were never seen again. The rear window rolled down with a soft electric hum. Mrs. Elena Mitchell. A man's voice. British accent. Formal. Elena's breath caught. Mitchell was her maiden name. She hadn't used it in 4 years. Who's asking? The car door opened. A man stepped out into the snow. He was older, mid-60s maybe, with silver hair and a posture as straight as a ruler. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Elena's car had been worth, and he carried a large black umbrella that he immediately extended over Elena and the baby. My name is William Ashford, the man said. I am the senior executor for the estate of Alexander Kingsley. Elena stared at him. Alexander Kingsley, the tech billionaire. The very same. I think you have the wrong person. I'm nobody. I'm a waitress. I don't know any billionaires. William's professional mask softened. He looked at the suitcases, then at the crying baby, then at Elena's face, the tear streaks frozen on her cheeks, the blood seeping through her coat where her stitches had torn. You are exactly the right person, Mrs. Mitchell, he said gently. Alexander Kingsley passed away 3 days ago in Zurich. I am here because he was your father. The world tilted. My father, no. That's impossible. My father was some deadbeat who left before I was born. My mother told me, your mother was protecting you. William reached into his coat and produced a photograph. She loved you enough to give you a normal life away from the pressures of wealth. But Alexander never stopped watching. He knew when you graduated high school. He knew when you married Marcus. He knew when you became pregnant. Elena looked at the photograph. It showed a man with dark eyes and a jawline that looked exactly like hers. He was smiling slightly, but there was something sad in his expression, something regretful. He paid for your mother's cancer treatments. William continued. Anonymously. He funded your college scholarship. He has been there all along, Mrs. Mitchell. From a distance. Why didn't he ever? He was a complicated man, brilliant in business, cowardly in matters of the heart. He spent 30 years building an empire, and he died alone regretting every moment he missed with you. Elena's legs gave out. William caught her elbow, steadying her. He left you everything, Mrs. Mitchell, the Kingsley Group, the real estate holdings, the patents, the investment portfolios, everything. How much is everything? William paused. When he spoke again, his voice was carefully neutral. Approximately $1.4 billion. Elena laughed. It was a desperate, broken sound. I was kicked out of my house with $500 3 hours ago, and you're telling me I'm a billionaire. I'm telling you that you are the sole heir to the Kingsley Group. William glanced at the car seat. And I'm telling you that you and young Master Lucas need to get out of this cold immediately. We can discuss the details somewhere warm. Elena looked back toward the brownstone, invisible now in the darkness and snow. Somewhere in there, Marcus was sleeping peacefully, dreaming of his promotion, confident that he had disposed of his burden. He had no idea. One question, Elena said. Yes, ma'am. The Kingsley Group. They own Kingsley Holdings, right? The logistics company downtown. Yes, it's one of our primary subsidiaries. And Marcus, my husband, he works there, in the Chicago office. William's expression flickered, just for a moment. Something knowing crossed his face. Indeed he does. I believe he is currently in line for a vice president position. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Snow accumulated on her shoulders. Lucas made a small sound, settling deeper into sleep. Does he know? She asked. Does anyone know about me? The will is sealed until you formally accept it. As far as the world knows, the empire is in limbo. As far as your husband knows, you are homeless and penniless and utterly defeated. Elena stood up. The pain in her side was still there, but it felt distant now. Secondary. Let's keep it that way, she said. William smiled. It was a thin, sharp expression. I was hoping you'd say that. He opened the rear door of the Rolls-Royce. Warm air spilled out along with the soft glow of amber lighting. Elena picked up the car seat and walked toward the car. She paused at the door, looking back one more time at the dark street, the falling snow, the city that had always felt too big for her dreams. 3 days ago, she had been Elena Mitchell, waitress, wife, nobody special. Tomorrow she would still be nobody special. Just a woman with a baby and a broken heart. But in 72 hours, she would walk into the headquarters of Kingsley Holdings. She would sit in the chairman's seat, and she would look into the eyes of the man who had thrown her into a blizzard. And she would destroy him. The presidential suite at the Four Seasons took up the entire 47th floor. Elena stood in the middle of the living room, still wearing her blood-stained coat, still clutching the car seat, unable to move. The space was larger than any apartment she had ever lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Chicago's skyline glittering against the night, a million lights reflected in the snow. "This is mine," she whispered. "For tonight," William said, closing the door behind them. "Tomorrow we will move you to the Kingsley estate in Lake Forest. But I thought you might need a moment to process before facing the full scope of your inheritance." A woman in a white medical coat appeared from one of the side rooms. She was carrying a black bag and had the calm, efficient demeanor of someone who regularly made house calls to billionaires. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Chen." Mr. Ashford called ahead. "I need to examine your surgical site immediately." Elena looked down at herself. The blood had soaked through her coat and was now dripping onto the marble floor. "I didn't notice," she said. "I couldn't feel it. Adrenaline. It masks everything until the crisis passes. May I?" Elena let herself be led to the master bedroom. The doctor helped her onto a bed that felt like lying on a cloud, and for the next 30 minutes she cleaned and resutured the incision, while Elena stared at the ceiling and tried to understand how her life had changed so completely in the span of 3 hours. "You're lucky," Dr. Chen said, applying fresh bandages. "Another hour in that cold, and you might have been looking at serious infection. Whoever kicked you out like this should be in prison." "He might be," Elena said quietly. "Eventually." After the doctor left, a woman from the hotel staff arrived with a rolling cart of baby supplies. Formula diapers, blankets, a portable crib. Everything Elena hadn't been able to afford, suddenly appearing like magic. She fed Lucas in the massive bed propped up against silk pillows, watching the snow fall against the windows. He ate greedily, his tiny fists opening and closing against the bottle. "You don't know it yet," Elena told him, "but your whole life just changed. I just don't know if it changed for the better." William knocked softly on the doorframe. "Madam, I apologize for the intrusion, but there's something you need to see." He was holding a tablet. His expression was grave. "What is it?" "Your husband. He's made a move." Elena took the tablet. On the screen was a legal document filed electronically with the Cook County Court. He filed for divorce. She almost laughed. "Well, I expected that." "Read further, madam." She scrolled down. Her blood turned to ice. "He's seeking full custody of Lucas. He's claiming I'm mentally unstable. He's saying I abandoned the marital home and that I'm homeless and unemployed and unable to provide for a child." She looked up at William, her voice shaking. "He threw me out. He threw me out into a blizzard with a 2-day-old baby, and now he's saying I abandoned him." "The law is a game of narratives," William said calmly. "He who controls the story controls the outcome. As of this morning, Mr. Bennett has a home, a job, and a lawyer. You have nothing. Or so he believes. I'll fight him. I'll tell the truth. I'll show the court what really happened." "With what evidence? Do you have recordings? Witnesses? Documentation of his affair?" Elena's mouth opened, then closed. "No, I was so stupid. I trusted him." "You weren't stupid, madam. You were in love. There is a profound difference." William sat down in the chair beside the bed. "But now we must be strategic. Your husband is expecting you to be broken, desperate, and alone. He is expecting you to accept whatever scraps he offers because you have no other choice. But I do have a choice now. Indeed. You have $1. 4 billion worth of choices. William leaned forward. However, your father was a man who understood power. He did not simply leave you money, Mrs. Mitchell. He left you a weapon, and weapons must be wielded with precision. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that we do not react. We do not file counter motions. We do not show our hand. For the next 72 hours, as far as Marcus Bennett is concerned, you are exactly what he thinks you are: homeless, broken, defeated. And then, William smiled. That thin, dangerous smile. Then we give him the surprise of his life. Elena didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face. That terrible blankness. That complete absence of the man she thought she had married. At 3 a.m. she got up and stood by the window looking down at the city. Somewhere out there in that brownstone on the north side, Marcus was sleeping soundly, probably with Vanessa beside him, wearing Elena's robe, sleeping in Elena's bed. He thought he had won. He thought he had discarded a burden and upgraded to a better model. He had no idea that the burden he had thrown away was about to become the most powerful woman in his entire professional world. Elena pressed her palm against the cold glass. "I'm going to make you feel it," she whispered to the city. "I'm going to make you feel exactly what I felt. And then I'm going to take everything." The next morning, William arrived with an army. That was the only way to describe it. A team of people invaded the suite like a well-coordinated military operation. Stylists, tailors, executive coaches, image consultants, a nutritionist, a personal trainer, a voice coach. "What is all this?" Elena asked, pulling her bathrobe tighter. "Your transformation," William said. "In 48 hours, you will walk into the headquarters of Kingsley Holdings. You will sit in the chairman's seat, and you will command a room full of executives who have been running this company for decades. You cannot do that looking like a woman who was kicked out of her home 2 days ago." I was kicked out of my home 2 days ago. The world doesn't need to know that. The world needs to see a queen. The first step was the hair. Elena had always worn it long and simple, usually pulled back in a practical ponytail. The stylist cut it into a sharp, powerful bob that made her cheekbones look like weapons. "You have your father's bone structure," the stylist said. "We just need to let it show." The clothes came next. A parade of suits in every color, every cut, every fabric. William watched her try on each one with the critical eye of a general inspecting troops. "Too soft," he said. "Too corporate. Too accessible." Finally, Elena emerged in a white suit. Perfectly tailored, sharp lines, cold as snow. "That one," William said. "That's the one you'll wear when you face him." But the physical transformation was only part of it. The real work happened at the table with William drilling her on the company structure, the board members, the politics, the personalities. "The Kingsley Group is a holding company," he explained, spreading organizational charts across the dining table. "We don't make anything directly. We own companies that make things: real estate, technology, healthcare, logistics." "Logistics," Elena repeated. "That's where Marcus works." "Correct. Kingsley Holdings is one of our largest subsidiaries. It handles shipping, warehousing, distribution. Your husband is a senior manager in the Chicago office currently leading the pitch for a $200 million government contract. And if he wins that contract, he gets promoted to vice president. It's the crowning achievement of his career, everything he's been working toward." Elena studied the chart. The lines of ownership, the chains of command, the flow of power. "So I own Kingsley Holdings." "You own the company that owns Kingsley Holdings. You are his boss's boss's boss. And he doesn't know." "No one knows. The will has not been made public. The board believes the company is in limbo waiting for the estate to be settled. They expect the assets to be divided up or sold off. They have no idea that Alexander Kingsley had an heir." Elena traced her finger along the organizational chart until she found Marcus's name. Senior Manager, Midwest Division. When is his pitch meeting? Thursday, 2 days from now, at the Kingsley Holdings headquarters downtown. The CEO of Kingsley Holdings will be there. The regional directors. The government clients. William paused. And the new owner of the Kingsley Group is entitled to attend any meeting at any subsidiary, as an observer, or as a participant. Elena looked up. Get me into that meeting. That can be arranged. But don't put my name on the agenda. I want to be a surprise. William bowed his head slightly. As you wish, madam. That evening, Elena watched the video. William had given her an iPad with a single file on it. A video message from her father. She sat alone in the bedroom, Lucas sleeping in the crib beside her, and pressed play. The face that appeared on screen made her breath catch. It was like looking in a mirror. The same dark eyes, the same sharp jawline, the same intensity in the gaze. Alexander Kingsley looked older than his photos. Frailer. He was sitting in what looked like a hospital room, surrounded by monitors and machines. Elena, he said. His voice was deep, raspy. If you're watching this, I'm gone. And if William has done his job, you're probably very confused right now. She laughed despite herself, a wet, broken sound. I don't have excuses for my absence in your life. I don't have justifications. I have only this: I was afraid. Your mother was the only woman I ever loved, and I was too much of a coward to stay. I built an empire, but I failed to build a family. The irony is not lost on me. He coughed, a long, rattling sound. I have watched you from afar for 27 years. I saw you graduate high school. I saw you work 3 jobs to put yourself through college. I saw you marry a man named Marcus Bennett, and I had my investigators look into him. Their reports were not flattering. Elena's jaw tightened. I wanted to warn you. I wanted to tell you he was a narcissist, a user, a man who would discard you the moment you stopped being useful. But I had no right. What could I say? Hello, I'm the father who abandoned you, and I think your husband is garbage. You would have laughed in my face. He was right. She would have. So I waited. I watched. And I prepared this. Alexander spread his hands. The Kingsley Group is yours now, all of it. But I have one condition. One test, if you will. He leaned forward, and despite the frailty, his eyes blazed with an intensity that Elena recognized, because she had felt it herself, standing in that blizzard, looking back at the house where her husband was betraying her. If Marcus is still beside you when you receive this, if he has proven himself worthy, if he has loved you and supported you and been a true partner, then share this fortune with him. Build a life together. Be happy. His expression hardened. But if he has failed you, if he has betrayed you, if he has shown himself to be the small, pathetic man I believe him to be, then I give you permission. No, I give you a command. Alexander Kingsley stared directly into the camera, directly into Elena's soul. Destroy him. Use everything I have built. Make him feel what you felt. Make him understand that Kingsley blood does not forgive, does not forget, does not show mercy to those who have shown none. He smiled. It was a cold, terrible thing. Welcome to the game, my daughter. The video ended. Elena sat in the darkness for a long time, holding the iPad, staring at the black screen. Her father had known. He had seen Marcus for what he was years before Elena had. And he had built this moment, prepared this weapon, left it waiting for the day she would need it. She thought about the blizzard, the blood soaking through her coat, Lucas screaming in the cold, Marcus's face as he said, "Should have thought about that before you let yourself go." She thought about Vanessa wearing her mother's robe. She thought about 4 years of dimming herself so Marcus could shine. 4 years of shrinking so he could feel big. 4 years of believing that if she just loved him enough, worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, he would love her back. Elena placed the iPad on the bedside table. "Okay, Father," she said to the empty room. "I'll play your game." The next 2 days passed in a blur. Elena learned the names of every board member. She memorized the quarterly reports. She studied Marcus's government contract pitch, which William had obtained through channels she didn't want to know about. "The pitch is flawed," she noted, pointing at a spreadsheet. "He's projecting a 15% margin on shipping, but he hasn't accounted for the new fuel tariffs in the Great Lakes region." William raised an eyebrow. "You spotted that. I spent 5 years managing inventory at a diner. I know supply chain costs. This would lose money within 6 months." "Your father would be proud." But Elena wasn't finished. "And these subcontractors he's proposing. I recognize some of these names. They've been cited for labor violations. If the government awards this contract and then there's a scandal, Kingsley Holdings takes the fall." "Indeed. Mr. Bennett appears to have prioritized speed over diligence." "He always does," Elena said quietly. "He always thinks he's the smartest person in the room. He never double-checks because he can't imagine being wrong." On Wednesday night, Elena stood in front of the full-length mirror in the suite wearing the white suit for the final fitting. She barely recognized herself. The woman in the mirror was sharp, powerful, cold. She looked like someone who owned a billion-dollar empire. She looked like someone you didn't want to cross. "How do I look?" she asked William. "Like your father," he said. "Except you have something he never did." "What's that?" "A reason to be ruthless." Elena nodded. She adjusted the collar of her suit. "Tomorrow," she said. "I want to be there early. I want to be seated before anyone else arrives. When Marcus walks in, I want to already be in the chairman's seat." "It will be arranged." "And William?" "Yes, madam." Elena turned away from the mirror. Her eyes were hard. "After tomorrow, I want you to run a forensic audit of Marcus's expense accounts. Every dinner, every hotel room, every gift he bought for Vanessa. I want to know exactly how much of my company's money he spent on his affair. And if we find evidence of financial impropriety, then we don't just fire him, we prosecute him." William smiled, that sharp, approving smile. "Your father definitely would have been proud." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She stood by the window again, looking at the city lights, trying to imagine what the next 24 hours would bring. Across the city, Marcus was probably rehearsing his pitch, practicing his confident smile, dreaming of his corner office and his VP title and his victory over the wife he had discarded. He had no idea what was coming. Elena picked up her phone and scrolled through her old messages. Hundreds of texts from Marcus over the years. She stopped on one from 3 years ago when they were still happy, or when she thought they were happy. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't deserve you." She read it 3 times. He was right. He didn't deserve her, but not in the way he meant it. She deleted the message, deleted the entire conversation, deleted his number. Then she typed out a text to Vanessa's number which William had provided. "Enjoy the robe. It was my mother's. She died wearing one just like it. I hope you think of that every time you put it on." She didn't send it. The satisfaction wouldn't be worth the warning. Instead, she deleted the draft and put the phone down. Tomorrow she wouldn't need words. Tomorrow her presence would say everything. At 4 a.m., Lucas woke up crying. Elena fed him in the dark, humming softly, watching the first gray light of dawn creep over the Chicago skyline. "Today's a big day, little one," she whispered. "Today, Mommy takes back everything they stole from us." Lucas grabbed her finger with his tiny hand and held on tight. She thought about what Marcus would see when he walked into that boardroom. His homeless, pathetic ex-wife. The woman he had thrown away like garbage. And then she thought about what she would see. The small, terrified man beneath the expensive suit. The coward who could only feel big by making others feel small. "He doesn't know it yet," Elena said to her son, "but he lost everything the moment he opened that door." At 8 a.m., The Rolls-Royce pulled up to the service entrance of the Kingsley Holdings headquarters. William opened the door for Elena. She stepped out dressed in white. Lucas left safely with the night nurse at the hotel. She looked up at the building. 40 floors of glass and steel. Her name was on the deed. "Are you ready, madam?" William asked. Elena took a deep breath. The cold Chicago air filled her lungs. "No," she said, "but I'm going to do it anyway." She walked toward the entrance. In exactly 1 hour, Marcus Bennett would stride into the boardroom confident and arrogant, ready to claim his promotion. And he would find his discarded wife sitting in the chairman's seat waiting for him. Elena smiled. It was not a warm smile. The elevator climbed in silence. Elena watched the numbers tick upward. 35, 36, 37. Each floor brought her closer to the moment she had been building toward for 72 hours. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished steel doors. White suit, sharp hair, eyes like winter. She barely recognized herself. William stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back. He hadn't spoken since they entered the building through the service entrance, avoiding the main lobby, avoiding any chance of being seen before the right moment. "Nervous?" he asked quietly. "Terrified," Elena admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway." "That's courage, madam. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more." The elevator chimed. 40th floor. The doors slid open. The executive reception area was empty. William had arranged for Elena to arrive 45 minutes before the meeting was scheduled to begin. The receptionist's desk was unmanned. The hallway stretched ahead, silent and gleaming. "The boardroom is at the end," William said. "I'll wait here. This moment belongs to you." Elena nodded. She stepped out of the elevator, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Each step felt like a mile. She pushed open the heavy oak doors of the boardroom and walked inside. The space was massive. A long mahogany table dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs. At the head of the table sat a single chair, larger than the others, positioned like a throne. The chairman's seat. Elena walked toward it. She ran her fingers along the polished wood, feeling the weight of what this chair represented. Her father had sat here. For decades, he had made decisions that shaped industries, destroyed competitors, built empires. And now it belonged to her. She sat down. The leather was cold against her back. She placed her hands flat on the table, feeling the grain of the wood beneath her palms. And she waited. The first board members arrived at 8:45. Elena watched them file in one by one, their conversations dying as they noticed her sitting at the head of the table. She didn't stand. She didn't introduce herself. She simply watched them with an expression as unreadable as stone. They took their seats in confused silence, exchanging glances, whispering questions to each other. "Who is she?" "I don't know." "Security." "In that suit?" "No way." At 8:55, Richard Henderson arrived, the CEO of Kingsley Holdings. A tall man in his 60s with silver hair and the confident stride of someone who had spent decades in corner offices. He stopped short when he saw Elena. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying the practiced authority of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "I believe you're in the wrong seat. That's reserved for the chairman of our parent company." Elena met his eyes. "I know," she said. Henderson's brow furrowed. Before he could respond, William entered the room carrying a leather folder. "Mr. Henderson," William said calmly, "allow me to introduce Elena Kingsley, the sole heir to the Kingsley Group. As of 72 hours ago, she owns this building, this company, and everything in it." The color drained from Henderson's face. "That's impossible. Alexander Kingsley didn't have any children. The estate is in probate." The lawyers said. The lawyers were operating on incomplete information. William opened the folder and placed a document in front of Henderson. "This is the certified will. Ms. Kingsley is Alexander's biological daughter. The DNA test was completed yesterday. Everything is in order." Henderson stared at the document, then at Elena, then back at the document. My God, he whispered. Please, Elena said, gesturing to the seats. Sit down, everyone. We have a meeting to attend. The board members scrambled to their chairs like children caught misbehaving. Henderson took his seat at Elena's right hand, still pale, still processing. Ms. Kingsley, he said carefully. I had no idea. Your father never mentioned. My father was a private man. But I'm here now. And I understand we have a significant pitch meeting this morning. The government logistics contract. Yes, our Chicago team has been working on it for months. The lead manager is Marcus Bennett, Elena finished. I know. Something flickered in Henderson's eyes, a question he was too smart to ask. He should be arriving any moment, Henderson said. Should we postpone until you've had time to? No. Elena's voice was ice. I want to see this presentation. I want to see exactly what kind of work my company produces. At exactly 9:00 a.m., the boardroom doors opened. Marcus strode in like he owned the place. He was wearing a new suit. Italian expensive, probably bought on the company card. His hair was perfectly styled, his smile perfectly practiced, his confidence radiating off him in waves. Behind him trailed his supervisor, a nervous man named Greg, who was sweating through his shirt. Good morning, everyone, Marcus announced, placing his briefcase on the table with a theatrical thud. I hope you're all ready to see how we're going to revolutionize government logistics and make Kingsley Holdings the #1. He stopped. His eyes had found Elena. For a long moment, nothing moved. The air itself seemed to freeze. Elena watched him. She watched the confusion ripple across his face, followed by recognition, followed by something that looked almost like fear. Elena. His voice cracked. What the hell are you doing here? She didn't answer. Did you follow me? Marcus's confusion was already hardening into anger. How did you even get into this building, security? He looked around wildly. Someone call security. This woman is my ex-wife. She's unstable. She's been stalking me since I... Mr. Bennett. Henderson's voice cut through like a knife. Sit down. Richard, you don't understand. This woman is crazy. She's homeless. She was just... I said sit down. Something in Henderson's tone finally penetrated Marcus's panic. He looked around the room at the board members who weren't meeting his eyes at Greg, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor at Elena, who sat motionless in the chairman's seat. What's going on? Marcus asked. His voice had lost its bravado. Why is she sitting there? Allow me to introduce Elena Kingsley, Henderson said, each word carefully pronounced. The sole heir to the Kingsley Group. As of 3 days ago, she owns the majority stake in Kingsley Holdings. She owns this building. She owns this company. Henderson paused. She owns your career. Marcus laughed. It was a desperate sound, sharp and ugly. That's ridiculous. Elena's father was some deadbeat who abandoned her before she was born. She's a waitress. She clips coupons. She doesn't own anything except $1.4 billion, Elena said quietly. And your future. The laughter died in Marcus's throat. That's impossible, he whispered. Sit down, Marcus. Elena's voice was calm, controlled, utterly devoid of the warmth it had once held for him. You came here to give a presentation. I'd like to see it. Marcus stood frozen for another moment. Then, slowly, mechanically, he sank into a chair. His hands were shaking. The presentation, Elena prompted. Whenever you're ready. Marcus fumbled with his laptop. His fingers kept missing the keys. It took him 3 tries to connect the HDMI cable. When the first slide finally appeared on the screen, Elena felt a cold satisfaction settle in her chest. She had studied these slides with William. She knew every flaw, every miscalculation, every shortcut Marcus had taken. The government logistics contract, Marcus began, his voice wavering. We're proposing a comprehensive solution that will, stop, Elena said. Marcus froze mid-sentence. Slide 4. The shipping margins. Marcus clicked forward, his hand trembling on the mouse. You're projecting 15% margins on Great Lakes shipping routes, Elena said. But you haven't accounted for the new fuel tariffs that went into effect last month. Your actual margins would be closer to 7%, maybe 6%. Marcus blinked. The tariffs we can adjust for. Slide 8, the subcontractor list. He clicked forward. 3 of these companies have been cited for labor violations in the past 18 months. Elena continued. If we win this contract using these subcontractors, and then there's a scandal, Kingsley Holdings loses the contract and faces federal investigation. Did you do any due diligence at all? We plan to. Slide 12, the timeline. Marcus clicked forward. His face was gray now, covered in a thin sheen of sweat. You're promising delivery milestones that are physically impossible given the warehouse capacity constraints in the Midwest region. Elena leaned forward. You either didn't do the math, or you did the math and decided to lie to a federal agency. Which is it? Marcus opened his mouth. No sound came out. The silence in the boardroom was absolute. Let me be clear about what I'm seeing here, Elena said, her voice cutting through the tension. This presentation would have cost Kingsley Holdings millions of dollars. It would have damaged our reputation with federal clients. It would have exposed us to potential legal liability. She turned to Henderson. Is this the quality of work we accept at this company? Henderson's jaw was tight. No, Ms. Kingsley, it is not. Then I believe we need to discuss Mr. Bennett's employment status. Elena, wait. Marcus stood up his chair, scraping against the floor. You can't do this. You don't understand how business works. You're just a what? Elena's voice was quiet, dangerous. A waitress, a nobody, a burden you needed to throw away so you could upgrade. Marcus's mouth worked soundlessly. You kicked me out of our home. Elena said each word precise and cold. I had just given birth. I was still bleeding from surgery. There was a blizzard outside, and you threw $500 at me and told me not to come back. I didn't know, Marcus whispered. I didn't know you didn't know I was about to become a billionaire. No, you thought I was worthless. You thought I was disposable. You were so confident that I was nothing that you didn't even bother to be discreet about your affair. You let your girlfriend wear my dead mother's robe while you threw me into the snow. The board members were staring at Marcus with undisguised contempt. That was personal. Marcus said, his voice rising with desperation. This is business. You can't fire me because of a personal... I'm not firing you because of our personal history. Elena slid a folder across the table. I'm firing you because of this. Marcus opened the folder. His face went from gray to white. This is a forensic audit of your expense account for the past 18 months, Elena continued. Dinners at restaurants with your girlfriend charged as client meetings. Hotel rooms charged as business travel. Gifts and jewelry charged as promotional materials. Would you like to know the total? Marcus didn't answer. $47,000. Stolen from my company to fund your affair with the woman you replaced me with. That's not... I can explain, it's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. It's embezzlement. Elena stood up. Security! 2 guards appeared at the door. They had been waiting outside, ready for this moment. Escort Mr. Bennett from the building, Elena said. He is terminated immediately. He will return the company car, the company laptop, and the company phone before he leaves the premises. You can't do this! Marcus screamed as the guards took hold of his arms. I'll sue. I'll destroy you. I have lawyers. I have connections. Your lawyers work for a firm that we retain on contract, William said calmly, from the corner where he had been watching. Your connections are people who depend on the Kingsley Group for their livelihoods. By this afternoon, you won't have a friend left in this industry. The guards began dragging Marcus toward the door. He was struggling now, his expensive suit rumpling, his perfect hair falling across his forehead. Elena, he shouted. Elena, please, I'm sorry I made a mistake. I love you. I've always loved you. Elena watched him. She felt nothing. You don't love anyone, Marcus, she said. You're not capable of it. You're a small man with a big ego, and you spent our entire marriage making yourself feel tall by pushing me down. But I'm done being pushed. Please, I'll do anything. Just give me another chance. Like the chance you gave me when I begged you to let me stay one night, when I asked you not to do this to our son. Marcus stopped struggling. His face crumpled. Our son, he whispered. Let me see him. Let me see Noah. He's my son too. I have rights. You have nothing. Elena's voice was ice. You filed for divorce and full custody before you knew about the money. You claimed I was unstable and homeless. You tried to take my child so you could use him as leverage. She walked toward him slowly, her heels clicking against the floor. You made your choice, Marcus. You chose Vanessa. You chose your career. You chose to throw your own son into a blizzard. Now live with it. Elena! Get him out of my building! The guards dragged him through the door. His screams echoed down the hallway, growing fainter with distance, until finally they were gone. Elena stood in the silence for a long moment. Then she turned back to the boardroom. I apologize for the disruption, she said calmly. Now, let's discuss who we're going to put in charge of salvaging this government contract. The meeting lasted another 2 hours. Elena sat in the chairman's seat the entire time, listening more than speaking, learning the dynamics of the company she now owned. Henderson walked her through the major projects, the key personnel, the challenges they were facing. She asked questions. Smart questions. Questions that made the board members look at each other with surprised respect. By the time the meeting ended, Elena had appointed a new lead for the government contract pitch, authorized a comprehensive review of all expense accounts, and scheduled a series of one-on-one meetings with each department head. She was exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the weight of everything she had just done was beginning to settle on her shoulders. But she didn't let it show. After the board members filed out, Henderson lingered. Ms. Kingsley, he said carefully, may I speak frankly, please? I've been running this company for 15 years. I've seen executives come and go. I've seen people with power abuse it, waste it, throw it away. He paused. I've never seen anyone use it the way you just did. And what way is that? Precisely. Surgically. You didn't lose your temper. You didn't gloat. You presented facts and let them speak for themselves. Henderson shook his head. Your father would have screamed. He would have humiliated Bennett, publicly dragged out the confrontation, made a spectacle. You just cut. Clean and quick. Elena considered this. My father had the luxury of anger, she said. He built his empire from strength. I'm building mine from pain. Pain teaches you not to waste energy on theater. Henderson nodded slowly. I wasn't sure about you when you walked in this morning, he admitted. I thought you might be in over your head. Another rich kid playing at business. And now I think I'm going to enjoy working for you. He extended his hand. Welcome to Kingsley Holdings, Ms. Kingsley. Elena shook it. Thank you, Richard. I'll try not to disappoint. William drove her back to the Four Seasons in silence. Elena sat in the back of the Rolls-Royce, staring out the window at the Chicago streets. The same streets she had walked 3 days ago, bleeding and broken and terrified. Everything was different now. Everything was the same. You did well, William said finally. Better than well. You were magnificent. I don't feel magnificent, Elena admitted. I feel hollow. That's normal. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but it doesn't warm you up after you've eaten it. Is that what this was? Revenge? What would you call it? Elena thought about Marcus's face when he realized who she was. The fear, the desperation, the pathetic pleading. She had waited 72 hours for that moment. She had visualized it, planned. It rehearsed it in her mind. And now it was over. I don't know what I'd call it, she said. Justice, maybe? Or just survival? Perhaps it doesn't need a name. William glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You protected yourself and your son. You removed a threat. You established your position in the company. Whatever else it was necessary. They pulled up to the hotel. Elena didn't move to get out. He's going to fight back, she said. Marcus, he's not going to accept this quietly. No, he'll hire lawyers. He'll try to manipulate the narrative. He'll claim he's the victim. And when he does... William smiled, that thin, dangerous smile. Then we'll be ready. Elena found Lucas in the hotel suite sleeping peacefully in his crib. The nurse was reading a magazine in the corner, and she stood up when Elena entered. He was an angel, the nurse reported. Ate well, slept well. Such a good baby. Thank you. You can take the rest of the day off. After the nurse left, Elena stood over the crib watching her son breathe. His tiny chest rose and fell. His fists were curled beside his head. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. He had no idea what his mother had just done. Your father is gone, Elena whispered to him. Not gone forever, maybe, but gone from our lives. He can't hurt us anymore. He can't use you as a weapon against me. Lucas stirred in his sleep, making a small sound. I know I should feel something, Elena continued. Relief maybe, or triumph, but I just feel tired. I feel like I've been running a marathon and I finally crossed the finish line, but there's no one there to celebrate with. She reached down and touched his cheek, soft as silk. You're all I have, she said. You're the reason I did any of this. Not the money, not the revenge. You. I needed to make sure you were safe. I needed to make sure he could never take you away from me. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. She opened it. This isn't over. I'm going to take everything from you. The company, the money, the kid, everything. You'll regret the day you humiliated me. Elena stared at the message for a long moment. Then she blocked the number and deleted the text. Marcus wanted a war. Fine, she would give him a war, but she would fight it on her terms, in her time, with weapons he couldn't even imagine. She had learned something in that boardroom today. She had learned that power wasn't about anger or aggression or force. Power was about control. Power was about making your enemies destroy themselves while you watched with a calm, cold expression. Marcus was already destroying himself. His ego wouldn't let him accept defeat. He would escalate. He would make mistakes. He would dig his own grave one shovelful at a time. And Elena would be there when he finished. Sleep well, little one, she whispered to Lucas. Mommy has work to do. She walked to the window and looked out at the Chicago skyline. Her skyline now. Her city. Her empire. 3 days ago, she had been standing at a bus stop in a blizzard, wondering how she was going to survive the night. Today, she had fired the man who put her there and taken command of a billion-dollar company. Tomorrow, she would begin building something new. Something that would last. Something that would make sure no woman ever had to feel what she had felt alone in the cold with a newborn baby, and nowhere to go. But tonight she would rest. She had earned it. Marcus didn't wait long to strike back. 3 weeks after being dragged out of the Kingsley Holdings boardroom, he filed a lawsuit that made national headlines. Elena learned about it from William, who arrived at the Lake Forest estate with a grim expression and a stack of legal documents. He's retained Robert Slate, William announced, the most aggressive divorce attorney in the Midwest. They're demanding 50% of the inheritance and full physical custody of Lucas. Elena was sitting in the nursery feeding Lucas his morning bottle. She didn't look up. On what grounds? They're claiming the inheritance is marital property. They're arguing that because you were still legally married when your father died, Marcus is entitled to half of everything. That's absurd. We were separated. He threw me out. He's claiming you left voluntarily, that the separation wasn't final, that you could have come back at any time. Elena laughed. It was a cold, brittle sound. He threw me into a blizzard with a 2-day-old baby. And he's saying I left voluntarily. That's his narrative. William placed the documents on the table beside her. There's more. He's petitioning for full custody of Lucas. He's claiming you're mentally unstable, that the sudden wealth has overwhelmed you, that you've abandoned your maternal responsibilities to play CEO. I haven't abandoned anything. Lucas is with me 24 hours a day. He has statements from people who claim otherwise. What people? William hesitated. Vanessa Chen. She's claiming she witnessed you having a breakdown at the brownstone. She's saying you screamed at Marcus, threatened him, and stormed out into the blizzard, despite his attempts to help you. Elena set down the bottle. Lucas fussed at the interruption, but she barely noticed. She's lying. Of course she's lying, but lies become truth if repeated loudly enough. William sat down across from her. The hearing is scheduled for next week. Judge Morrison, family court. Open to the public, which means open to the press. He wants a spectacle. He wants leverage. If he can get temporary custody of Lucas, he'll use the child as a bargaining chip. He'll drag out the proceedings for years, bleeding you dry with legal fees, keeping you in a constant state of warfare. Elena stood up. She walked to the window, looking out at the grounds of the estate she still couldn't believe was hers. What do we have? She asked quietly. What do you mean? Evidence. What do we have on our side? William opened one of the folders. We have the forensic audit of his expense accounts. $47,000 in embezzlement. We have testimony from the board members about the quality of his work. We have the termination paperwork showing he was fired for cause. That's business. What about the personal? What about the night he threw me out? William was silent for a moment. That's where it becomes difficult. It's your word against his. Vanessa will testify on his behalf, without corroborating evidence. The doorbell camera. William looked up sharply. What? The brownstone had a doorbell camera, one of those smart home systems. Marcus installed it 2 years ago because he was paranoid about package theft. Elena turned to face William. It records everything, video and audio. If he didn't delete the footage, then we have everything. William was already on his feet. I'll have our investigators subpoena the records immediately. If that footage still exists. It exists, Elena said. Marcus never bothered with administrative tasks. He always said that was women's work. He probably forgot the camera was even there. William smiled. That thin, sharp smile. Then he's just handed us the knife to cut his own throat. The week before the hearing passed in a blur of preparation. Elena worked with her legal team 18 hours a day. Helen Marquez, the attorney, William had retained, was a quiet woman with steel gray hair and a reputation for destroying opponents in family court. The judge will look at several factors, Helen explained during one of their strategy sessions. Financial stability, living situation, emotional fitness, history of abuse or neglect. We need to establish that Marcus was the aggressor and that you're a fit mother despite your sudden change in circumstances. And the doorbell footage. Helen smiled. It was not a warm smile. We received it this morning, full audio, full video, time-stamped and authenticated. She slid a tablet across the table. Would you like to watch? Elena hesitated. She hadn't seen the footage since that night. She didn't know if she was ready to relive it. Play it, she said. The video began. Elena saw herself standing in the doorway clutching the car seat, her face pale and confused. She watched Marcus stand up from his chair. She watched Vanessa emerge from the kitchen wearing the silk robe. She heard every word. Get out, Elena, before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. Just let me stay in the guest room for a week, just until I can find a place. Don't do this to Lucas. Don't make this pathetic Brooklyn. Have some dignity. He doesn't want you. And then Marcus grabbing her arm, throwing the suitcases onto the porch, tossing the envelope into the snow. Here, $500. Should get you a motel for a few nights. Don't come back. The door slamming. Elena standing alone in the blizzard, blood seeping through her coat, her newborn son wailing against the cold. The video ended. Elena realized her hands were shaking. She realized there were tears on her cheeks. "I forgot," she whispered. "I forgot how bad it was. My mind had softened it somehow, made it survivable." Helen reached across the table and covered Elena's hand with her own. "This footage is devastating," Helen said gently. "No judge in the country will award custody to a man who did this. No jury would convict you of anything except surviving. He's going to claim it was edited, taken out of context. Let him try. We have the metadata. We have the original files from the security company. We have everything we need." Elena wiped her face. "What else do we have?" "The medical records from Chicago Memorial, documentation of your C-section, your emergency treatment for hypothermia, the night William found you, the torn stitches that required resuturing." Helen opened another folder. "We also have his text messages to Vanessa, obtained through Discovery. They're quite illuminating." "Show me." Helen handed her a printout. Elena scanned the messages, her jaw tightening with each line. "Can't wait until she's out. The house is going to feel so much better without her moping around. Just a few more days. After she has the kid, I'll give her the boot. She's got nowhere to go. She'll sign whatever I want." "You're so smart, baby. I love how you plan everything." "That's why I'm going to be VP. I know how to play the game." Elena set down the printout. "He planned it," she said quietly. "He waited until I had the baby. He waited until I was at my most vulnerable. And then he executed his plan." "Yes. And now we're going to execute ours." The courthouse was surrounded by press. Elena had expected it, but the reality was still overwhelming. Hundreds of cameras, reporters shouting questions, flashbulbs exploding like silent fireworks. "Ms. Kingsley, is it true you're worth over $1 billion? Elena, how do you respond to claims that you abandoned your husband? Is this about the money or the child?" Elena walked through the gauntlet without responding. William flanked her on one side, Helen on the other. They had rehearsed this. Head high, eyes forward, no comment. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Every seat filled with journalists, curiosity seekers, and people who just wanted to watch a billionaire's family implode. Marcus was already seated at the plaintiff's table. He wore a navy suit and a neck brace that Elena immediately recognized as fake. His attorney, Robert Slate, sat beside him, radiating the smug confidence of a man who believed he had already won. And sitting in the row behind Marcus was Vanessa. She looked different than Elena remembered. More polished, more expensive, wearing jewelry that Elena suspected had been purchased with company funds. Their eyes met for a moment. Vanessa smirked. Elena didn't react. She simply walked to the defense table and sat down. Judge Morrison entered, an older woman with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. Elena had been told she was fair but brutal, with no patience for theatrical lawyers or dishonest witnesses. "Good morning," the judge said, settling into her chair. "I understand we have a custody dispute and a claim regarding marital property. Mr. Slate, you're representing the plaintiff. Proceed." Slate stood up with a theatrical flourish. "Your Honor, my client is a victim. He is a loving father who has been systematically excluded from his son's life by a woman who let sudden wealth change her priorities." Elena listened to Slate's opening statement without expression. He painted a picture of Marcus as a devoted husband who had been blindsided by his wife's transformation. He claimed Elena had become obsessed with business, neglecting her child, abandoning her marriage. "We are not seeking to punish Ms. Kingsley," Slate concluded. "We simply want what is fair. 50% of the marital estate and shared custody of the minor child. That is reasonable. That is just. That is what the law requires." Helen rose slowly. Unlike Slate's theatrical delivery, her voice was quiet, measured, and absolutely devastating. "Your Honor, the plaintiff's narrative is a fiction, and I have proof." She nodded to her assistant, who began setting up a screen. "What is this?" Slate demanded. "Exhibit A," Helen said. Security footage from the doorbell camera at the marital home. Recorded on the night Mr. Bennett claims his wife voluntarily abandoned him. Objection. Slate was on his feet. We weren't notified of this evidence. This is an ambush. The footage was obtained through legal discovery 2 days ago. Helen responded calmly. Mr. Slate's office was notified immediately. I have the delivery confirmation. The judge looked at Slate. Overruled. Proceed. The video played on the screen. Every person in the courtroom watched in silence as Marcus dragged Elena's suitcases onto the porch. As Vanessa told her to have some dignity. As Marcus threw $500 into the snow and slammed the door in the face of his wife and 2-day-old son. When it ended, the silence was absolute. Judge Morrison's face was carved from stone. Mr. Bennett, she said quietly, is that you in the video? Marcus's attorney leaned over and whispered something. Marcus nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Slate answered for him. But the video lacks context. My client was under tremendous pressure. His wife had been emotionally abusive for months. He simply, I have more context. Helen interrupted. Exhibit B. Text messages between Mr. Bennett and his mistress, Ms. Vanessa Chen, in the weeks leading up to the incident. She handed copies to the judge and to Slate. Can't wait until she's out. Helen read aloud. The house is going to feel so much better without her moping around. After she has the kid, I'll give her the boot. She's got nowhere to go. She'll sign whatever I want. The judge read the messages, then read them again. Mr. Bennett, she said, her voice icy. You planned this. You deliberately waited until your wife had given birth, when she was at her most vulnerable, to eject her from the home. Your Honor, I can explain. I haven't asked for an explanation yet. The judge turned to Helen. What else do you have? Medical records showing that Ms. Kingsley suffered hypothermia and torn surgical stitches as a result of being forced into a blizzard while recovering from a C-section. Forensic accounting showing that Mr. Bennett embezzled $47,000 from his employer to fund his affair. And testimony from multiple witnesses at Kingsley Holdings regarding Mr. Bennett's termination for cause. Slate was sweating now. His confident demeanor had crumbled. Your Honor, this is all very dramatic, but it doesn't change the fundamental legal question. The inheritance was received during the marriage. Under Illinois law, Helen cut in. Property acquired during marriage is subject to equitable distribution. However, the Kingsley fortune was held in a Swiss trust with specific conditions. One of those conditions is what's known as a bad boy clause. She held up a document. The trust explicitly states that if the beneficiary is married at the time of inheritance, the funds remain in a blind trust unless the spouse signs a waiver. However, if the couple is legally separated, the funds release immediately and solely to the beneficiary. Helen looked directly at Slate. By filing for divorce before he knew about the money, and by physically ejecting Ms. Kingsley from the home, Mr. Bennett legally established the date of separation as the night of the blizzard. The inheritance was received after the separation. It is not marital property. Marcus shot to his feet. That's not fair. I didn't know about the money. If you had known, the judge interrupted coldly, you would have what? Treated your wife differently, kept her around as a meal ticket. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. Your Honor. Slate tried desperately. My client's actions, however regrettable, were made under duress. He wasn't thinking clearly. He was thinking very clearly, Helen said. He planned this for weeks. He coordinated with his mistress. He waited until the optimal moment to strike. The only thing he didn't plan for was that his wife might be worth more than he imagined. The judge was silent for a long moment, reviewing the documents in front of her. I've heard enough, she said finally. I'm prepared to issue my ruling. The courtroom held its breath. On the matter of property division, the evidence clearly establishes that the separation occurred prior to the receipt of inheritance. The Kingsley fortune is the sole property of Ms. Elena Kingsley. Mr. Bennett's claim is denied. Marcus sagged in his chair. On the matter of custody, I am awarding full legal and physical custody of the minor child, Lucas, to Ms. Kingsley. Mr. Bennett has demonstrated a pattern of calculated cruelty, financial irresponsibility, and disregard for the well-being of his child. I am also issuing a restraining order requiring Mr. Bennett to remain at least 500 feet from Ms. Kingsley and the child. Your Honor, Slate protested. My client has rights as a father. You can't simply, I can and I am. The judge's voice was steel. Mr. Bennett forfeited his parental rights when he threw his 2-day-old son into a blizzard. He will have no visitation rights. He will pay child support calculated based on his last known income, and if he violates this order, he will go to jail. She slammed the gavel. Court is adjourned. The aftermath was chaos. Reporters surged toward Elena as she left the courtroom. She ignored them all, walking steadily toward the exit with William and Helen flanking her. Behind her, she could hear Marcus screaming. This isn't over. I'll appeal. I'll take this to the Supreme Court if I have to. You haven't heard the last of me. Elena. She didn't turn around. Outside, the cold Chicago air hit her face like a blessing. She had won. She had actually won. How do you feel? William asked quietly. I don't know yet, Elena admitted. Ask me tomorrow. A commotion erupted at the courthouse doors. Elena turned to see Marcus pushing through the crowd, his face twisted with rage, his attorney trying and failing to restrain him. Elena, he screamed. You ruined my life. You took everything from me. Elena stopped walking. She turned to face him, surrounded by cameras, the whole world watching. No, Marcus, she said calmly. You ruined your own life. I just refuse to be collateral damage. I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to tell everyone the truth about you, about your father, about everything. What truth is that? Marcus's eyes were wild, desperate, the look of a man with nothing left to lose. That kid isn't mine, he shouted. I know he isn't. I saw my medical records. I'm sterile. You used a sperm donor. You cheated on me. That's why you wanted me gone. That's why. Elena felt her blood freeze. She had prepared for many things. She had not prepared for this. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. I found the fertility report from 2 years ago. Marcus continued, his voice rising. My numbers were almost 0. There's no way I could have gotten you pregnant. Lucas isn't my son. He was never my son. You've been lying to everyone. The reporters had gone silent. Every camera was pointed at Elena. William stepped forward, his face pale. Madam, we should go. Don't engage with this. But Elena didn't move. She looked at Marcus, at the man she had loved for 6 years, at the father of her child, whether he believed it or not. And she made a decision. You're right, she said. The crowd gasped. I'm right. Marcus looked confused. You admit it. You're right that you have fertility issues. Elena said, her voice carrying clearly in the frozen air. The doctors told us both that conceiving would be extremely difficult, almost impossible. She paused. What they didn't tell you, because your ego couldn't handle it, was that difficult doesn't mean impossible. The doctors recommended we try IVF. They recommended supplements. They recommended lifestyle changes. She took a step toward him. But you refused. You said there was nothing wrong with you. You said the doctors were idiots. You said if we just kept trying naturally, everything would work out. Marcus's face was changing, confusion replacing rage. So I made a choice. Elena continued. I went to a fertility clinic alone. I didn't use a donor. I used advanced procedures to maximize our chances with what we had. It was expensive. It was exhausting. And I never told you because I knew you'd rather stay childless than admit you needed help. That's not possible. The numbers said it was unlikely, not impossible. And the doctors were right. It took months. It took procedures you never knew about. But Lucas is your biological son, Marcus. He has your eyes. He has your chin." Elena's voice hardened. "And I thank God every day that he won't have your character." Marcus stared at her. The fight seemed to drain out of him. "You're lying," he whispered. "You have to be lying." "I don't have to be anything anymore." Elena turned her back on him. "Goodbye, Marcus. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope it makes you happy. But I don't think it will. I don't think anything will ever make you happy because the problem was never me. The problem was always you." She walked away. Behind her, she heard Marcus collapse to his knees. She heard him sobbing. She heard the reporters shouting questions that would never be answered. But she didn't look back. She was done looking back. In the car, Elena finally allowed herself to breathe. William sat across from her, watching her carefully. "That was masterfully handled," he said quietly. "The fertility clinic story. Very convincing." Elena looked out the window. "It wasn't a story," she said. "It was the truth. Mostly." Mostly. Elena was silent for a long moment. "The doctors told us conceiving naturally would be almost impossible. That part was true. And I did go to the clinic alone because Marcus's pride wouldn't allow him to participate." She turned to face William. "But I didn't need any special procedures. I didn't need IVF. I didn't need anything except time and luck. Marcus's numbers were low, but they weren't zero. Nature found a way." "Then why tell him?" "Because if Marcus believes Lucas is his son, he'll never stop. He'll use that biological connection as a weapon for the rest of his life. He'll demand visitation. He'll show up at school events. He'll poison Lucas against me out of spite." Elena's voice was steady, cold, certain. "But if Marcus believes Lucas isn't his, if he believes he's been raising another man's child all along, then he'll walk away. His ego won't let him fight for a son he thinks belongs to someone else." William was silent for a long moment. "So, you told the truth to make him believe a lie." "I told him his own worst fear. And he'll believe it, because it's easier than accepting that he threw away his own flesh and blood for a woman who left him 6 months later." Vanessa left him. She disappeared the moment the verdict was announced. I suspect she's already found another man with a corporate credit card and a fragile ego. William leaned back in his seat. "Your father would have been terrified of you," he said softly. "Good," Elena replied. "He should have been." 1 year later, Elena stood on the balcony of the Kingsley estate watching the sun set over Lake Michigan. The water stretched out before her like liquid gold rippling with light. Behind her, inside the mansion, 300 guests were gathered for the inaugural gala of the Kingsley Foundation. The most powerful people in Chicago, dressed in their finest, drinking champagne and writing checks for causes they barely understood. But Elena needed this moment alone. She needed to remember. 1 year ago tonight, she had been standing at a bus stop in a blizzard, clutching a car seat, wondering if she and her son would survive until morning. She had been bleeding through her hospital gown. She had been abandoned by the man she loved. She had been worth exactly $42.50. Tonight, she was hosting a charity gala in a mansion she owned, wearing a dress that cost more than her old apartment's yearly rent, surrounded by people who wanted her attention, her approval, her favor. The transformation was so complete that sometimes she felt like she was living someone else's life. "Madam," Elena turned. William stood in the doorway, impeccable as always in his formal attire. "They're asking for you," he said. "The governor wants to discuss the housing initiative, and the mayor's wife has cornered Richard Henderson and appears to be interrogating him about your romantic availability." Elena laughed. It was a genuine sound, warm and unguarded. "Tell the governor I'll be there in 5 minutes. And tell the mayor's wife that I'm not interested in being set up with her nephew, or her brother, or whoever she's promoting this week. I shall convey your regrets with appropriate diplomacy." William hesitated. "There's also a matter we need to discuss. Privately, when you have a moment." Something in his tone made Elena's smile fade. What is it? Not here, after the gala. William. He met her eyes. It concerns Marcus Bennett. He's made a move. Elena felt the old familiar coldness settle in her chest. The coldness she had learned to wear like armor. What kind of move? The kind that requires a response. William glanced back at the party. But it can wait until our guests have departed. Tonight is about celebration. Tomorrow is for war. Elena nodded slowly. All right. Tomorrow. She turned back to the view for one last moment. The sun was almost gone now, just a sliver of orange bleeding into the purple horizon. Then she straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked back into the light. The gala was a triumph. By midnight, the Kingsley Foundation had raised enough money to fund 3 new shelters for homeless mothers in crisis. Elena had stood on the stage and announced the initiative to thunderous applause, her voice steady and strong as she described her vision. Every woman deserves a second chance, she had told the crowd. Every mother deserves warmth and safety for her children. No one should ever have to stand in the cold, wondering if they'll survive the night. She didn't mention her own story. She didn't have to. Everyone in that room knew the headlines. They knew about the billionaire Cinderella who had been thrown into a blizzard and risen to own an empire. What they didn't know were the details. The blood soaking through her coat, the $500 scattered in the snow, the door slamming in her face while her son screamed against the cold. Those details belonged to her. She would never share them. She would never let Marcus's cruelty become entertainment for strangers. But she would use her pain to protect others. She would turn her nightmare into someone else's salvation. That was the only revenge that mattered now. After the last guest departed, Elena found William waiting in her study. He was holding a tablet and a folder, and his expression was grave. "Show me," Elena said, sitting down behind her desk. William placed the tablet in front of her. On the screen was a grainy photograph of a man sitting in what looked like a television studio. "This was recorded yesterday," William explained. "A tabloid news program called Inside Access. They specialize in celebrity scandals and sensationalized exposés. And Marcus is their new star. He gave them an exclusive interview. It airs tomorrow night." Elena felt her jaw tighten. What is he claiming now? The same story he tried at the courthouse. That Lucas isn't his son. That you used a sperm donor. That your entire inheritance was obtained through fraud. We already debunked that. The judge ruled on the legal merits. The court of public opinion is a different arena. William opened the folder. His new angle is more sophisticated. He's claiming that your father's will contained a secret clause requiring you to produce an heir within 1 year of his death to unlock the full inheritance. He's saying you knew you couldn't conceive naturally, so you faked the pregnancy. Elena stared at him. That's insane. There was no such clause. We know that, but tabloid audiences don't check sources. They don't verify claims. They believe whatever confirms their existing suspicions. William's voice was heavy. As of this morning, the hashtag Kingsley Fraud has trended globally. Your company's stock dropped 3%. Elena stood up and walked to the window. The grounds of the estate stretched out before her, illuminated by soft landscape lighting. Somewhere in this house, Lucas was sleeping peacefully, watched over by his nanny. He had no idea that his father was trying to destroy his mother on national television. What does he want? Elena asked quietly. Officially, he's demanding a DNA test to prove Lucas isn't his biological child. He's threatening to take the results public, regardless of the outcome. And unofficially, money. He's broke, completely broke. After the divorce, ruling the forensic audit, and his termination from Kingsley Holdings, he couldn't find work anywhere in the logistics industry. He's been blacklisted. Where is he living now? A studio apartment in Cleveland. He works as a night shift manager at a distribution warehouse. Minimum wage, plus overtime. Elena closed her eyes. Part of her, a small and shameful part, felt satisfaction at his fall. The man who had called her a burden, who had said she had no ambition, who had bragged about upgrading to a better model, was now living exactly the life he had feared. But another part of her, a larger part, felt only exhaustion. "He'll never stop," she said softly. "As long as he's alive, as long as he has breath in his body, he'll keep coming. He'll keep trying to hurt me. He'll keep using Lucas as a weapon." "Yes," William agreed. "He will." Elena opened her eyes. "Then I need to end it. Permanently." "How?" She turned to face him. "By giving him exactly what he's asking for." The press conference was scheduled for the following evening, 30 minutes before Marcus's tabloid interview was set to air. Elena had considered many options. She could ignore him, let the story die down on its own. She could sue him for defamation, drag him through another court battle. She could use her resources to destroy what little remained of his life. But none of those options would truly end it. Only the truth could do that, or something that felt like truth. The conference room at Kingsley Tower was packed with reporters. Elena sat at a table with William on one side and her attorney Helen on the other. "Thank you for coming," Elena began. "I understand my ex-husband has given an interview making certain claims about me and my son. I'm here to address those claims directly." The reporters leaned forward, hungry for scandal. "Marcus Bennett has stated that Lucas is not his biological child. He has claimed that I used a sperm donor because he was unable to father children. He has suggested that my entire inheritance was obtained through fraud." Elena paused. "He is correct about one thing." The room went silent. "Marcus does have fertility issues. When we tried to conceive 3 years ago, doctors informed us that his sperm count was extremely low. They told us that natural conception would be nearly impossible." Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled. What the doctors didn't tell Marcus because his pride couldn't handle it was that nearly impossible is not the same as actually impossible. They recommended treatments. They recommended procedures. They recommended patience. Elena's voice remained steady. Marcus refused all of it. He couldn't accept that there was anything wrong with him. He insisted that we keep trying naturally, that the doctors were wrong, that his masculinity wasn't in question. She looked directly into the nearest camera. "So I went to the fertility clinic alone. I underwent procedures that maximized our chances. I spent months in doctors' offices enduring tests and treatments that Marcus was too proud to participate in. And eventually, against all odds, I became pregnant." "Ms. Kingsley," a reporter called out, "are you saying Lucas is Marcus's biological son?" "I'm saying that I never used a sperm donor. I never lied about the paternity. I simply did what Marcus was too weak to do. I faced the problem. I sought solutions. I made it work." She let that sink in. Marcus is standing by his claim that Lucas isn't his child. He's demanding a DNA test, and I've decided to give him one. The room erupted. "But here's what Marcus doesn't understand," Elena continued, raising her voice over the noise. "I'm not doing this to prove anything to him. I'm doing this to protect my son, because as long as Marcus believes he might be Lucas's father, he'll never stop. He'll spend the rest of his life trying to use that child as leverage. He'll demand visitation rights. He'll show up at school events. He'll poison Lucas against me out of spite." She leaned forward. "So I'm going to take that weapon away from him. Permanently." "How?" someone shouted. "By letting him believe what he wants to believe." The reporters looked confused. "The DNA test will happen next week," Elena explained. "A court-appointed geneticist will conduct it. The results will be sealed and delivered to Marcus and to me simultaneously. And if the test shows he's the father—" Elena smiled. It was a cold, sad smile. "It won't." The DNA test was conducted 7 days later. Elena submitted Lucas's sample through her attorney. Marcus submitted his through his own lawyer, a public defender he'd found through legal aid. The results came back in 14 days. Elena was sitting in her study when William brought the envelope. He placed it on her desk without a word. She stared at it for a long moment. "Have you looked?" she asked. "No, madam. That is your decision." Elena picked up the envelope. It was surprisingly light for something that carried so much weight. "What if I'm wrong?" she said quietly. "What if, despite everything the test shows, he's not the father? What if I've been telling myself a story that isn't true?" "Then you'll deal with that truth as you've dealt with everything else, with courage and intelligence." Elena smiled faintly. "You have too much faith in me, William." "I have exactly the right amount of faith in you, madam." She opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with the genetic analysis results, numbers and charts and scientific terminology. And at the bottom, in bold text, the conclusion: probability of paternity, 99.97%. Elena stared at the paper. Lucas was Marcus's son. The DNA proved it beyond any doubt. She had been right all along. The fertility treatments had worked. Against all odds, against all probability, Marcus had fathered a child he would now never acknowledge. "Madam?" William asked carefully. "What does it say?" Elena looked up at him. "It says exactly what I expected." "And what do you intend to do with this information?" Elena stood up and walked to the fireplace. A fire was burning low, casting dancing shadows across the room. "Marcus received his copy this morning," she said. "His lawyer confirmed it." "Yes." "What did he say when he saw the results?" William hesitated. "According to his lawyer, he refused to believe it. He's claiming the test was tampered with. He's demanding a second test from an independent lab." "And if the second test shows the same thing?" "Then he'll demand a third, and a fourth. He'll keep demanding until he finds a result he can live with." Elena nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." She held the paper over the fire. "Madam, what are you doing?" "I'm giving Marcus what he needs." She dropped the paper into the flames. The fire consumed it in seconds. The proof of Marcus's paternity turned to ash and floated up the chimney, gone forever. "I don't understand," William said. Elena turned to face him. "Marcus will never accept that Lucas is his son. His ego won't allow it. If I show him this test, if I prove that he threw away his own flesh and blood, it will destroy whatever remains of his sanity. He'll become obsessed. He'll spend the rest of his life trying to get Lucas back, not because he loves him, but because his pride demands it." "So what will you tell him?" "Nothing. I'll let the silence speak for itself." "But he'll assume. He'll assume whatever he wants to assume. He'll convince himself that I destroyed the evidence because it proved him right. He'll tell everyone who'll listen that I'm hiding the truth because I'm guilty." Elena smiled. It was a terrible, beautiful smile. "And that's exactly what I want." "Why?" "Because as long as Marcus believes Lucas isn't his son, he'll stay away. His pride won't let him fight for a child he thinks belongs to another man. He'll fade away, consumed by his own narrative, and Lucas will grow up never knowing the monster his father really was." William was silent for a long moment. "You're protecting your son by letting his father believe a lie." "I'm protecting my son by any means necessary." Elena's voice was steel. "Marcus made his choice the night he threw us into the blizzard. He decided we were disposable. He decided his career and his mistress were more important than his family. Now he gets to live with the consequences of that choice. Even if it means he'll never know his son. He never wanted to know his son. He wanted to own him. There's a difference." William bowed his head. "Your father would have been proud of you, madam, and terrified." "Good," Elena said softly. "He should have been both." 3 months later, Elena received word that Marcus had left the country. He had taken a job with a logistics company in Southeast Asia, according to William's sources. A low-level position in a country where no one knew his name or his history, where he could pretend to be someone else, where he could escape the wreckage of his American life. He never contacted Elena again, never asked about Lucas, never tried to assert any parental rights. He simply vanished like a bad dream fading in the morning light. Elena heard through various channels that he was telling people his ex-wife had stolen his fortune, that she had tricked him, that she had used a sperm donor and passed off another man's child as his own. She never corrected the record. Let him believe what he needed to believe. Let him build whatever narrative helped him sleep at night. She had her son. She had her empire. She had her freedom. That was enough. On Lucas's second birthday, Elena threw a small party at the estate. Just family, she told William, though her only family was a handful of loyal employees who had become something like friends. After the cake was eaten and the presents were opened, Elena carried Lucas out to the balcony. He was getting heavy now, all solid toddler energy squirming in her arms as he pointed at the stars. "Star," he said. "Star Mama." "Yes, baby. Those are stars." "Want one?" Elena laughed. "You can't have a star, sweetheart. They're too far away." "Want one anyway?" She kissed his forehead. "You know what I think you're going to grow up to be, the kind of person who gets what he wants anyway, even the impossible things." Lucas looked at her with his father's dark eyes, Marcus's eyes, the eyes of a man who would never know what he had thrown away. "Love, Mama," Lucas said. Elena's heart clenched. "I love you too, baby. More than anything. More than everything." William appeared in the doorway. "Madam, you have a call. The mayor's office. Something about the new shelter site." "Tell them I'll call back tomorrow. Tonight is family time." William smiled. "Of course, madam." After he left, Elena stood alone with her son, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The blizzard, the bus stop, the black Rolls-Royce appearing out of nowhere like something from a fairy tale, the transformation from waitress to billionaire, the courtroom battles, the tabloid wars, the final terrible decision to let Marcus believe a lie so that Lucas could grow up in peace. She had done things she wasn't proud of. She had manipulated the truth. She had destroyed a man's relationship with his own son to protect that son from the man's destruction. Was it right? Was it justified? She didn't know. She might never know. But she knew this: Lucas was safe. Lucas was loved. Lucas would never stand in a blizzard wondering if he would survive the night. Lucas would never be used as a weapon in someone else's war, and that was worth any price, any moral compromise, any secret she would carry to her grave. "Star Mama," Lucas said again, pointing at the brightest light in the sky. "That's Venus," Elena told him. "It's not really a star, it's a planet, but it's so bright that people used to think it was magic." "Magic," Lucas repeated, delighted. "Sometimes the things that look impossible turn out to be real," Elena said softly. "And sometimes the things that look real turn out to be lies. The trick is figuring out which is which." Lucas didn't understand. He was 2 years old. He wouldn't understand for many years. But someday, Elena would tell him the story. Not all of it, maybe, not the darkest parts, but enough for him to understand who he was and where he came from and what his mother had done to keep him safe. Someday. For now, she held him close and watched the stars come out, and she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time: peace. "Come on, little one," she said finally. "Time for bed." She carried him inside, away from the cold, into the warmth of the home she had built from the ashes of her old life. Behind her, the stars kept shining, indifferent to the struggles of the humans below. The world kept turning. Time kept passing. And somewhere far away, a man who had once thought himself a king was learning what it meant to be forgotten. Elena didn't spare him another thought. She was done looking backward. She had an empire to build, a son to raise, a future to create, and she would do it all on her own terms, in her own way, with her own strength. Because that's what survivors do. They don't just endure, they rise. Elena closed the balcony door and walked into the light, her son in her arms, and her whole life ahead of her. Marcus Bennett had kicked her out into a blizzard, thinking he was discarding a burden. He had no idea he was setting free a queen. And by the time he understood what he had lost, it was far too late to get it back. Some doors once closed stay closed forever.